The 12 member countries of OPEC include Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, United Arab Emirates, Algeria, Nigeria, Ecuador, Gabon, and Angola, as well as Equatorial Guinea, who are members of OPEC. And majorly, most of these members of OPEC, their own quota they are producing is about 1.65 million barrels per day. Just recently, we heard the news of Nigerian crude oil production hitting 1.8 million barrels per day. But here is the issue. OPEC Plus are members of OPEC who are extraordinary, according to extraordinary members, based on my understanding of how they deal with OPEC. They are not full members, but they come together to take decisions that also affect OPEC or also affect themselves. So these members are Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Brunei, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Mexico, Oman, Russia, South Sudan, and Sudan. Although individual countries that I've just mentioned, they don't produce as much as, main members of OPEC. I've been informed right now that Mr. Olatide is here. So let's join Mr. Olatide so that he can give us a more dissect analysis on the global crude oil production and its market trend. Mr. Olatide, very good day to have you on the show today. I think you have to unmute yourself so that we can hear you from here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, very well. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
All right, so
it's my pleasure being on the show today.
Who else can we also bring on this show if not you, who is directly involved in this sector?
I can't hear you.
Okay, you can't hear me. Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can't hear you.
What about now?
I can't hear.
Oh, serious. Maybe our technical crew will take care of that. But I'm hearing you clear and loud and clear here in the studio. What about now? All right, we need to take care of some things in that regard so that we can get a clear audio from Mr. Jeremiah Olatide. As I was pointing out earlier, we have the OPEC main body, we have OPEC Plus. OPEC Plus are just a segment of new discovery countries who have discovered oil, although some of them have discovered oil over the last 40 years, but they're just coming together to form a okay, are you hearing me now?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, so let's get down to the discussion point. Mr. Olatide, what do you make of the OPEC Plus decision?
Come again, the network is pretty bad.
All right. What I'm saying is that the OPEC Plus decision to increase their volume of their production by 547,000 barrels per day. What is your take on it?
Okay, good afternoon, viewers. And it's my pleasure to be here once again. And OPEC is an organization that oversees supply and demand of crude oil across the world. The essence of OPEC is to regulate demand and supply, more on supply, because we understand that the higher the supply, the more prices drop, the more we have lower prices, and the higher the demand, the more we have higher prices. So the essence of OPEC is to look into supply of crude oil, try to give members targets to produce a certain output on a monthly basis. So OPEC comes out on a monthly basis to have a meeting with their members to ascertain a particular output in order to control production and control supply of crude oil. So for me, the meeting that they had to increase production is a good one because it's going to help to improve inventories and it's going to help to stabilize the economy, because we all know that the higher the demand, if the demand of crude exceeds the supply, there will be problem all over the world. Prices will start rising, stocks will start rising, and it's going to affect the economy. So for me, for them to have routine meeting to increase output is a good one. Is to help avert danger. Is to help avert supply danger. So for me, it is a perfect one for them to have agreed to improve or to increase their output in September.
Very interesting. Although for the OPEC, they cited some reasons. They said one of the reasons was that they are seeing that the market fundamentals is in their favor. So when they say market fundamentals is in their favor, what does it really connote? Let's break it down to our viewers to understand these market fundamentals that OPEC is citing as one of their reasons.
Okay, well, looking at it, we have the OPEC and we have the
Exactly.
And you understand that the OPEC Plus, you have some particular countries, Russia and co, that are members of the OPEC Plus. And when you look at it, they are trying to protect their economy. They have output and are trying to protect their economy. So for me, the fact that they are trying to control prices from rising and they are trying to stabilize their economy to make sure that other economies is stabilized, because oil is an integral part of the world economy. You see, for every time there are issues or there are tension relating to oil production, you see how it affects the whole economy. So for them to say, oh, there are fundamentals, yes, what are those fundamentals? Those fundamentals are basically the economy, and to see how they could strengthen the economy as a whole and to make sure that member countries don't have issues when it relates to supply. So that's are the basic fundamental for my own understanding.
Exactly. And in a more simplified way, they also came with a very soft decision. They said they have seen an elevated oil price that is getting high as $70, and they said they have to do something about it, and that's why they are taking up this decision. But you know that country like Nigeria is interested in a higher crude price of as they speak right now. We are interested in about $75 per barrel. But OPEC is trying as much as to do something that can, bring it down a little below the $70. Don't you think that is a little bit of a disadvantage to us?
Yes. In the global world, price reduction is the goal. Looking at OPEC, OPEC and OPEC Plus, their major goal is to make sure that prices drops down to $65 per barrel.
Exactly.
And it is just to stabilize the economy and to make sure that prices remain at bay. That is why, when you have a up in supply, you have a down in prices. But in our Nigerian context, our economy is tied to oil. Our economy is tied to our daily output. And the target by the president is a 2 million barrels per day. But luckily, as of last month, the NUPLC said since we were the NUPLC were able to hit the 1.8 million barrels per day in the month of June. The last time we had that surge was in November last year. So I think we are getting closer to our target in terms of volume. Because we have target for volume, that's the 2 million barrels per day, and we have targets for the price, which is $75 per barrel. That is tied to our budget. So for the volume, we've moved up from 1.5 million barrels to 1.8 million barrels. That is the latest report by NUPLC for the month of June. That is pretty okay for the economy. But looking at the global price, we are still behind bars. Because if price still remains at $70 per barrel or below, our economy will suffer. Because 80% of our expenditure and the budget basically is tied to what we earn from the oil. So, but if you look at it on the other hand, we really need to diversify our revenue. Depending on oil to the tune of 80% is dangerous for an economy like Nigeria. We should be able to create other modalities where we could make other revenue in order to strengthen the economy and strengthen the country.
Interesting. But let's take another reason why they brought up this particular 547,000 barrels they are talking about in September. They also cited tight stock. And you know, when you say tight stock, you know, we are trying to understand that aspect in the area of, is it to oversupply the system, or they're having a shock in terms of their production and system? Because I could recall that normally 1.65 million is the basic bench for all OPEC members. But OPEC Plus now coming together with the main OPEC, and everybody is talking for about 2.5 million barrels per day. Don't you think that that tight stock is something that they want to also use as a string to oversupply the system?
Yes. Well, the hallmark of OPEC, or the major goal of OPEC as an organization, is basically output. To comply is basically production and output. They understand that output determines price. If you have higher output, or if you have a robust inventory or a robust stock, prices will drop. And if there are issues with supply or stock, prices will rise. So they are trying to be proactive to make sure that demand that is ahead will meet a supply that is steady. What is supply? Having inventory, giving member countries targets to increase production and have enough inventory, have enough stock, so demand can always be met. So it's a good one that they are proactive. I see this as a proactive measure to make sure that the world economy is stabilized, because the moment the world run into shortage of oil supply, there will be collapse in so many sectors of the world. And they're trying to be proactive. And if you look at it, in the 1960s, when OPEC was trying to come together, when they're trying to form OPEC as an organization, one of the core goals is to see how to control the oil industry, to make sure that we don't have a situation where there will be demand and no supply. So every time they're giving targets, some people say, oh, let us increase production, is they are trying to create a balance and to see that the economy of the world is stabilized, because oil production is an integral part of the world economy. For every time you see collapse in the supply of crude oil, you see how it affects the economy. It affects all other of the economy. And for every time you see a boom in supply in the world generally, you see how the economy of the world is so big, is vibrant. So it is when you have a vibrant supply of crude all over the world, you will see prices dropping. And if price of crude drops, it has its huge advantages on so many sectors of the world. So other sectors, they affect them, so sectors of the world. It's not unfortunate that as Nigeria, we depend solely on crude to be able to sustain our expenditure, which it is so bad. Other advanced countries of the world, they diversify their economy, they diversify their expenditure, they make revenue from other streams, and it has helped stabilize the economy. So I am of the opinion, and I am fully in support of OPEC intention to increase production by September.
Exactly. Now, talking about OPEC intention, but there's one political intention that follows this OPEC intention. They are now putting pressure on US, for instance, is putting pressure on India not to buy Russian crude. And OPEC Plus came out vividly and loudly to say one of their reasons to bring up this higher increase of production by 547,000 is that we want to help one of our friends, one of our allies, the Russia, so that as US is putting pressure on them, that pressure will not work, and that's the reason why they are increasing this production. But what's your take on that? The politics of oil, mingling it with the Russia-Ukraine fight, and US is saying that we want to use that particular pressure to bring Russia to the table for peace deal. But what's your take as an oil expert in this politics of oil, mingle with a peace deal or a peace deal agreement?
Yes, well, we all know that Trump has been so vibrant in the oil industry ever since he came into power early this year. Even his inaugural speech, he made some statements that oil prices must drop. And he has been so vibrant, so articulated when it comes to giving his voices what he feels should happen in the industry. Now, he is of the opinion that Russia and Ukraine must be at peace. Severally, he has intervened. He has called the president of Russia and also called the president of Ukraine to see how he could broker peace between them. And severally, it has not worked. So now he's seeing the tariff to see how that will work. And those are methodology that he feels he could use on Russia to come to the table so there will be peace. Because if you look at it, the reason why prices surged to over $100 per barrel few years ago, 2 years ago precisely, when the Russia-Ukraine war started, was because of the war between Russia and Ukraine. You know that outside demand and supply of crude oil, another major factor that influence prices is war and tension.
Exactly.
When you have tension and war or conflict in a country that is a top producer of oil, definitely is going to affect supply and prices will drop. So I am in support of the peace that is being expressed by Trump, that both parties need to come to the table. Outside the fact that so many lives, so many properties have been lost, if you look at the oil industry, the conflict, the long-standing conflict between Russia and Ukraine has affected the world economy, particularly the oil economy. Prices at, if you look at Nigeria, we have inflation. Why? Because the price rose and it affected so many products we have here in Nigeria. So I am in support that there should be peace. Trump is trying to do everything within his reach to broker peace between Ukraine and Russia. So for me, personally speaking, I am not against it.
Very interesting.
It's good of the world economy.
Exactly. If you say you are not against it, the next question anybody who could ask right now is that, is it sustainable? Can it be justified? And will this really work? Because after all, US have exhausted every other means, but they are now coming to India. Don't buy Russian crude oil. Although it could be an advantage to Nigeria. You could recall that India is one of our biggest trading partners when it comes to oil. So maybe if they don't buy Russian oil, they could come to Nigeria. But what do you make of all these stands in terms of sustainability?
Well, for me, I think it is just a temporary methodology. It's not something that is going to be long standing. It's just a temporary means of looking forward to peace. But hopefully, I know someday they will come to the peace table to have a discussion on how to put an end to the Russia-Ukraine war, because Russia is a powerhouse when it comes to crude supply in the world. And that conflict has had negative influence, negative impact on so many, even countries like Nigeria. It has had an impact on us. So I think whatever it does that could broker peace, I am in support. What I want to see is peace, because with peace we are going to have a stable world economy.
Very interesting. Now let's get back home and use this template of the discussion to extract the impact on the global oil crude oil price on domestic price. Just yesterday, the moment this news broke out on Sunday evening, your people now, they started adjusting here and there. They started shaking here before you know the press release from marketers and the rest of them. But what's your take on it in terms of the impact on local PMS price?
Well, for Nigeria, for the fact that 50% of what we consume is being imported, global prices will always have influence on our local prices. And for the fact that 50% of what the biggest refinery in Africa, Dangote refinery, what it uses for production is being imported, global prices will determine global prices.
Exactly.
Until we give Dangote we will enable Dangote to have access to our crude 100% and in naira. That is when global oil prices will not have effect on our local prices. Dangote still imports heavily in terms of crude. There is this report that came out that Dangote was the biggest buyer of US crude in the month of June. It was not the biggest buyer. It is because of he is having issues getting enough crude from Nigeria, which is a disgrace to a country that is the biggest producer of oil in Africa. We are the biggest as we speak. And a refinery like Dangote, that is the 7th biggest refinery in the world, with a 650,000 capacity going to a 700,000 capacity, should not have access to crude. It is a big blow to our case. But hopefully, I know the federal government is working very hard to see how Dangote would get 100% access to crude by year end. And with that, by that, we are going to have stability. But we also have some fears of monopoly. When they have access to the crude, they have access to the entire market, it's going to monopolize the market.
Exactly.
But experts like us are pushing for a balance between local refining and a bit of importation of crude. Even in US, Russia, even in India, in as much as they have gigantic refineries that produce over 1.2, 1.3 million barrels per day, they still import because it's going to help them have this balance and energy security in their country.
Exactly. Now, talking about energy security and investment flow into the country, something very disappointing happened last week. The rumor news of Bayo Julare, GMD of NNPC, resigning. And the moment we got that news, my humble self and some analysts were like gisting over it, and we were like, doesn't it another demarketing for us when it comes to the oil and gas sector? Just yesterday, Ojulari appeared in one of the conferences that he attended, after disputing that there was nothing like that, and he said, according to report, that he's even speaking and talking to oil IOCs to come back into Nigeria and invest. But such demarketing news, from your own understanding, can you share your thoughts with us on that?
Well, thank you so much for bringing up this. We've had several issues in the last few months when the current GCEO of NNPC resumed office. We've had several issues. We've had protests, we've had petitions and so on. And it shows how deep corrupted sector is, the oil and gas sector is in Nigeria. But it's so unfortunate. Now let's even go to the NNPC. The NNPC saga was a big one last week, where the NNPC is saying, no, we are not going to sell our refineries. Some other experts and Dangote is saying, no, these refineries cannot work. If you look at the trajectory of our refinery, the first refinery came into being in the 1960s. That's the Olatide refinery. It was the first in West Africa. And second refinery, which is the Warri refinery, was commissioned in 1978. The third refinery, which is the Kaduna refinery, was commissioned in 1980. Those refineries have spent over 40 years. And if you look at it, it's between 2000 and 2000 till date, they spent close to 20 trillion naira in rehabilitating those refineries. Close to 20 trillion naira. They've spent it and we've not seen any headway. Still, those refineries are not functional. And for me, if you look at the top 10 refineries in the world, 7 out of 10 of them are privately managed. They are owned by private individuals. Dangote happens to be the 7th largest refinery in the world and is run by private individuals. Look at Dangote. Dangote came into being last year. Ever since then, it has been producing between 500 to 15,000 barrels per day. That's close to 100 million barrels per day. Uninterrupted. But a public-run refinery might not be able to achieve that because of corruption, nepotism, and a whole lot. So how am I of your opinion? In several platforms, I have voiced out, I'll point out that we need a PPP arrangement. There must be a public-private partnership arrangement where a reasonable part of NNPC must be privatized to those that are technocrats.
Olatide, I have to cut you in. So sorry that I have to apologize. I have to cut you in because of time. But these are developing issues. Hopefully, we may have to come back and revisit these rumors, resignation, and the rest of them. But I want to appreciate you for coming on the show today. And I'm so pleased with your submission. And they are quite insightful, very educative when it comes to the global oil price across the world. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
So expect another invitation very, very shortly.
Thank you, sir.
All right.